Sorry if you can hear my air conditioner. There's a ongoing heat warning in Ohio. Over back over in the Indian subcontinent, we have U.S. troops pushing into southern Pakistan. Eventually, Pakistan decides to withdraw all of its troops from India, so they can try to defend the homeland. Although playing the defensive has, name me, I dare someone in the comments. I dare you to tell me a singular time in history where playing the defensive has ever done anything right and that's ever won a battle or a war for that matter. Name me a singular time. The only one that I can really think of is Vietnam, but even then, they weren't just letting the troops, they weren't just wearing out the troops. They were pushing back China's troops. Like, I dare you, I dare you, I dare you. Yes, this is just to cover up the fact that I need to draw all these lines. I dare you. So back over in Central Asia, the entire is really just falling apart. We see a U.S. We see an invasion into Central Asia. That was already liberated. Whatever. Troops in Kyrgyzstan get a much better supply line, and they start to kick out China through a spearhead and a cutoff. Over in Russia, we have these Finnish troops surrendering, but Russia literally does not care until they're all dead from starvation. Now, eventually, Russia decides to go on its own spring offensive, so they're able to push back Finland and push back the USA by quite a bit. Mongolia's Gobi Desert continues to be a problem for the U.S. troops, although they're able to recapture areas around Manchuria. Over in Africa, Morocco goes on the offensive, splitting Mauritania into two, as well with Senegal's help. With this, a massive encirclement ensues, leading to Mauritania continuing to fall apart. Eventually, Nigeria decides to withdraw all troops from their areas in East Africa so they can try to defend the homeland. Once again, a terrible idea, but whatever. Eventually, with U.S. troops and NATO arriving in bigger numbers, as well as Cameroon launching an offensive from their side, and Equatorial Guinea even making a naval invasion, we see the eventual collapse and encirclement of Nigeria. With this, Niger is completely exposed, so they decide to attack it, splitting the country into two, pushing up to Algeria and Libya's border. The USA is very familiar with Libya, so they land troops over in Tunisia to help take out the Libyan coast, as without it, these countries are basically nothing. With this and Morocco's help, they're able to capture the Algerian coast and split the countries into two. Morocco continues to push into Algeria through its borders, and it's just chaos. It's all chaos. Eventually, with this, we see Algeria completely surrendering and only its troops holding out. The troops, they're very patriotic. Have you seen Algeria? Back over in Europe, we have Russia being starting to be pushed out of the we have Russia starting to be pushed out. We have Russia being starting to be pushed out of the continent, and Serbia is looking very attackable, so they decide to attack it. Wouldn't. And Russia is exhausted. They've used all their resources. They basically have no companies backing them anymore. So with this, we see the continuing invasion into Russia in the northern part. USA, Korea, Australia, Japan, and all the countries over in Asia and Oceania launch a massive invasion into the Gobi Desert, being able to encircle all of Mongolia. At this point, Mongolia knows they've lost. Their dreams of the empire have been crushed, so they surrender. Over in Manchuria, we see Japanese troops holding a line, pushing down into China and taking over their coast. Eventually, with this, we have all the Chinese coast being blocked, meaning the only trade route they have is to this small part of Kazakhstan. Over in the DRC, we have the continuing troop into the collapsing country as rebels aid the blue team army forces. And and eventually we see the complete fall of the DRC. Over in the Horn of Africa, we have Ethiopia crossing into Somaliland, as rebels help out the cause. We have the pushdown of the Somalia coast and the capturing of the Kenyan coast as South Sudan and Uganda push into Kenya with Tanzanian help. Ethiopia does the exact same, being able to crush out the countries. With this, the invasion of Sudan is made as the biggest priority in Africa right now, as there's nothing else to do other than invade Algeria and Libya. Egypt helps out with this, and eventually we see the collapse of the Sudanese government. With this, the only the red team that remains in Africa is Niger, the split Niger. That sounds very weird saying out loud, but whatever. Parts of Algeria, a lot of Libya, and a little bit of Mauritania, which is eventually captured by Senegal and Morocco. Eventually, another spring offensive is launched as the Allies are starting to run low on resources, although they do have a lot of countries to help them out with that. Eventually, Niger is continued to be cut off, and Algeria surrenders to the blue team. Over in Niger, we have this part being cut off, leading to the surrender of that country, and Libya. And after a push in from dang it, dear God. So once again, you cannot be serious. There we go. That's better. With this, once again, Nigeria surrenders, and after an invasion from Egypt, Libya surrenders. So with this, now the only line remains in Asia. With this, Asia launches one final attack. China attacks in Tibet, in the Tibetan region, and in Mongolia. Russia attacks once again in the north, splitting the troops into two for the second time. China attacks once again at the coastal areas, taking over Hong Kong and Macau, as well as attacking the Vietnamese areas. Myanmar goes on a small offensive into India, and China does the same around the Indian coast, conquering most of the Tamil King area. I know it's not actually the Tamil Kings anymore, but I don't care. Pakistan launches an offensive. Kazakhstan launches an offensive. The remaining countries launch offensives. Yada yada yada. You get it. Russia and Belarus go on their blitzkrieg through Europe, mainly getting into Poland and almost being able to re-liberate Kaliningrad. With this, everyone's exhausted, although the red team is lacking resources. A desperate push is made into Europe, and it goes very well. With this, we see the complete capturing of Belarus after rebels rise up, and the massive push into Russia from the Caucasus and the west. Finland connects with these troops, and they start pushing in. Moscow is now under threat. And